in a house. At least, if you're in my AP Gov class, I know you live in a house. And if you're watching this and you're not in my AP Gov class, I don't know why you're watching it, but I'm willing to bet that you live in a house too. You know what I'm also willing to bet? You have a car. Why am I so far down the frame? Anyways, as I was saying, I'm willing to bet that you have a car, and that you have to use it a lot too. To get to school, to get to Publix, to get to your sister's Taekwondo lessons. It seems like you're spending a lot of time in a car. This is no surprise, given that in 2019, the most common means of transportation to work by county was overwhelmingly driving alone, with the only county using public transportation was New York City. And I guess people in Alaska just like to walk a lot? So that means that driving has to be super convenient, right? Well, no. Actually, the typical driver in the US spent 51 hours in traffic last year, 15 hours more than in 2021. And fuel costs for the average US driver tallied $130 more in 2022 than the year before. And I definitely knew that quote and was not reading it off of my Chromebook. So today I'm going to be taking a page out of Alaska's book and arguing for why the US government should make America less car dependent. And for your viewing convenience, I've divided my argument into 4 lenses: economic, environmental, public health, and social. But first, a quick history lesson. The point of this was for me to look like Mr. Rivera, but I didn't really want to draw on the whole beard, so I do realize that I just look like a crusty Discord mod for this next bit, but just go with it. It seems that our car-dependent days started like they always do, after World War II. While James and Michael were excited to return home after a long war fought, it turns out that James and Michael were not the only soldiers returning home. In fact, more than 4 million American soldiers returned home after World War II. And unfortunately, that's a bit too many soldiers, and there was a subsequent housing crisis, as there was not enough houses to house all these new people. So as a result, the modernist architectural design explodes, and we have cookie-cutter housing popping up left and right. And if you want to know more about that, you should have been in my AP research class. But a lovely byproduct of these cookie-cutter houses is the emergence of the U.S. Interstate Highway. According to an article from Bloomberg, in the 1950s, the U.S. federal government offered a 90% match to build the interstate highway system. Coupled with the invention of the assembly line production and mass motorization, soon enough, highways were everywhere, so cars were everywhere. I'm wearing a different shirt now. Don't worry about it. So that's how America got to be so car dependent. But why is America still so car dependent today? Well, that's largely in part due to America's zoning laws as compared to European zoning laws. Our Bloomberg article has more to offer in the land of information. And according to the Bloomberg article, Europeans tend to allow a greater mix of use in their residential zones, thus keeping trip distances shorter. For example, in Germany, a residential zone can include doctors' offices, cafes, corner stores, or apartment buildings. However, in America, single-family residential zones typically forbid those uses. And while most U.S. zoning codes still require a minimum number of parking spots, many European countries operate with maximum numbers to limit parking. Essentially, zoning laws in America make it so that car dependency is preferred over walkable areas. Some of you who are watching may be wondering, Bella, why are we targeting the government for this? Why is it their problem? To which I say to you, random viewer, fedoras are totally out, very 2012, find yourself a new hat. And also, let me tell you a little bit about the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation is responsible for planning and coordinating federal transportation projects. You may be thinking to yourself, federal transportation projects? Wait, Bella, highways are owned by the state. Boom! Entire argument debunked. I'm gonna make an hour-long podcast in Beef O'Brady's debunking your entire argument. Now, before you gobble up that $7.99 Burger Mondays deal, let me remind you that while state governments are ultimately in charge of highways, they get a large majority of their funding from federal governments. So it is up to both the federal and state governments to work together to make transportation more accessible. Within the Department of Transportation is the FTA, or Federal Transit Administration, which is headed by an administrator appointed by the President of the United States. According to their website, FDA has partnered with state and local governments to create and enhance public transportation systems, investing more than $20 billion annually to support and expand public rail, bus, trolley, ferry, and other transit services. That investment has helped modernize public transportation and extended service into small cities and rural communities that previously lacked transit options. So clearly, we can see that some effort has been made by the government to make America less car dependent. But why should we even do that in the first place? I think by this day and age, pretty much everyone and their grandma has heard about how cars emit just a ludicrous amount of carbon emissions into the air. But hearing that doesn't make it any less true. Okay, editing Bella here to say, I meant to say hearing that frequently doesn't make it any less true, not just hearing that doesn't make it any less true. Let's see what an article from The Nation has to say about this. The emissions associated with driving exacerbate the effects of climate change, disproportionately impacting Black and brown communities. Reducing emissions and transitioning to a more sustainable transportation system is at the forefront of the minds of many young people, as their generation is left to clean up a mess they didn't make. At the same time, however, electric vehicles do not seem to be the catch-all climate solution they are often touted as, with the lithium required for their operation creating a demand for increased mining in already vulnerable environments. It is imperative for the American government to work to design a built environment for America that is resilient to climate change, as according to a report from the UN Press in 2018, humankind has less than 12 years to avoid potentially irreversible climate disruption. One way that the United States can help to combat climate change is by focusing on how they can make America less car dependent and provide more options for transportation, such as public transportation or walking. On-road transportation is the United States' top source of climate change causing greenhouse gas emissions and a significant source of other air pollutants. Therefore, reducing car dependency would reduce emissions. Not only are cars bad for the environment, but they're an inefficient use of space. And this is ironically expressed in none other than a car commercial for 5 Saturn. Okay guys, it's not 5 Saturn, it's just the YouTube video I used says top 10 auto ads, and the Saturn one is rated 5th. So it's just an ad for Saturn, not the planet, the type of car. But it's not 5 Saturn either. I'm just gonna roll the clip.
When we design our cars, we don't see sheet metal. We see the people who may one day drive them.
Introducing the redesigned L, the View, and the all-new Ion. It's different in a Saturn.
Hey US government, this lens talks about money, so I think you'll want to actually listen to this one. It's no surprise that having a car costs money. As soon as you drive that car off the lot, your car instantly depreciates in value. And additionally, there's thousands of dollars that will inevitably be spent on maintenance and gas. According to an article published in 2020 titled "Reducing Car Dependence Has Economic, Environmental, and Social Benefits." Whoa, it's almost like those are my lenses. Researchers at UC Davis found that the average US household spent over $9,000 on its cars in 2017, amounting to 16% of household expenditures. The high purchase price and regular fuel, maintenance, and insurance costs can be a financial burden, especially for lower income households. It's also very expensive to build and maintain the roads necessary for private vehicles. Highway maintenance costs have ballooned to over $500 million a year in California. Promoting lower cost travel alternatives can free up finances to be used for other important needs. As seen in the graph, families spend on average 17.4% of their yearly income on transportation, which is the second highest, second only to housing. And regular old civilians aren't the only ones who are going to benefit economically from reducing car dependence. The government will benefit too, as it will lower the high cost of maintaining roads. To summarize the important stuff for the government, you spend less money, more money in your pockets. Good. I have a different shirt on again. Don't worry about it. The research conducted at UC Davis also comments on the benefits of reducing car dependency regarding public health. Their research found that driving, a sedentary activity, contributes to obesity. Additionally, long car commutes are often stressful and are associated with negative mood, poor concentration, driver error, and traffic collisions. I can personally attest to this. State Road 52 is my personal hell. Living in more auto-dependent areas can contribute to increased blood pressure, headaches, social isolation, and depression. By contrast, commuters who use active modes such as biking and walking report their travel to be more relaxing and satisfying than do their driving counterpart. In summary, walking is a whole lot better for you than driving. Who would have thought? The social benefit is that walkable districts, and on a larger scale, walkable cities, foster a greater sense of community, as there is a far higher incidence of social interaction. This means that they also stimulate the creation and growth of smaller economies of local shops and amenities, tying back into the economic lens. See, government? Less cars means more money! Just what you want to hear. Humans are social creatures, but the opportunities for interaction in a car-dependent society are limited. If I'm walking down the street and I notice a girl with really pretty hair, I'm much more likely to say, "Hey, I like your hair," than if I notice the same girl 2 cars over from me at a stoplight. Unless you're really into the being a whole public nuisance stick, people naturally keep to themselves while they're in cars. So there's sufficient reasoning as to why we should make America less car dependent. But how do we actually do that? One way that people become less dependent on cars is through the use of mixed-use developments. And how America can adapt towards these mixed-use developments is by reshaping their zoning laws to reflect those of European countries. Right now, the way that zoning laws work, pretty much only single-family homes can be put in one area. But if we reshape our zoning laws to allow for mixed-use units, you can have stuff like doctor's offices or grocery stores or convenience stores nearby so that you are able to access them without using a car. Additionally, on the road, there needs to be more options for people so that they don't have to just use a car. One of these is through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which provides a strong opportunity to promote accessible, affordable mass transit and road infrastructure to protect bikers and pedestrians, brought to us by the Federal Transportation Administration. The Act increased about 30% of funding to transit agencies and is providing the largest investment in public transportation in our country's history, expanding service and getting more Americans to their schools, medical appointments, grocery stores, and entertainment events. So, clearly, if we put more focus into the Federal Transportation Administration, we will have more options for America to be less car dependent. This ties into what the researchers at UC Davis are expressing, when they say, quote, "A more comprehensive approach is to shape communities in a manner that gives people viable options other than a personal vehicle, such as walking, bicycling, or transit to get where they need to go." And before all the car lovers come and swarm my comments with hate comments and swarm my Premiere Live chat with hate comments, promoting alternative transportation modes can benefit those who don't choose to use them. Because if there's less people on the roads, that frees up the road and frees up congestion for those who do still want to use car. Ultimately, making America less car dependent is a net positive, and it would benefit the society for good. So, of course, links are in the description because I did not come up with all this in my brain. I actually found a lot of this information from other sources, so you can check those out in the description. And as always, make sure you smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and hit the little bell so you can get notified the next time I upload in like 4 months. And I guess that concludes my first video essay.